I'd like to thank the Swinburne Islamic Society and the other university Islamic societies for bringing this event together as quickly as they did. It was very short notice, and they've done a stellar job. I've never presented an event of this nature to such a large audience. Before I start, can I just get a show of hands? Who in the room is a Muslim, please? Thank you. Are there any Christians in the room? Thank you. Any atheists? Anyone of any other faiths? Thanks very much. So, my opponent has spoken very eloquently to the topic, you cannot justify being good without a God. It's my task to try and make a case that you can. All of us are called on to obey rules of moralities in our lives, and they come from a variety of sources. This is, I'm not very good at drawing, this is Parliament House. This is a monarch. They have less influence in Australia than they used to, but we have historically had to obey edicts from monarchs. This is a religious leader, you can tell because they've got a big hat. Oh, I'm sorry. So, as individuals, we have to obey rules coming down from these sources, and we get in trouble if we don't. Does obeying those rules from those sources make us good? It depends on what those rules are. There are rules that come from our government that I don't think are good. There are historically many rules that came from kings and religions that I don't think constitute good rules. I think if you obey rules from authority, you can say that you're obedient. I don't know that that qualifies as good. You also sometimes have to obey rules just because there's a lot of people who say you do. The argument from authority can be incredibly powerful, particularly if they're carrying a stick. Does obeying their rules make you good? It makes you obedient, but whether or not you're good depends on what those rules are telling you to do. If they're telling you to go out and hurt people for no reason, I don't think that actually qualifies. But those rules have historically been passed on. So when I'm assessing the rules that I'm expected to follow from the government, from the monarchy, from religions, from my wife, from my children, all these different hierarchies of concern, I apply logic. And this will probably bore most of you that have been through it before, but I'm just going to outline what logic can and can't do with the classic example. All dogs have 4 legs, and I'm going to ask you to ignore those amputee dogs that have 3 in their own little trolleys. Rex is a dog, therefore Rex has 4 legs. We can't turn that around and say all dogs have 4 legs. I'll just work the dog up there. All dogs have 4 legs. Rex has 4 legs. Therefore, Rex is a dog. The conclusion that we've drawn there doesn't follow from the premises. That's what logic is good at. It's good at testing the coherence of an idea, and it's good at testing whether or not a conclusion follows from the premises that you've stated. So all dogs have 4 legs. Happy that that maps to reality. Rex has 4 legs. Rex has got 4 legs. That maps to reality. But the conclusion can't be justified by those premises. Rex might be a cat. So your logic has to be valid. But your logic also has to be sound. Here's the third and final example of this. All dogs have 6 legs. Rex is a dog. Therefore, Rex has 6 legs. In this case, the logic is valid. The conclusion does follow from the premises. But one of the premises doesn't map accurately to reality, so the conclusion is flawed. So your logic has to be valid, the conclusion has to follow from the premises, and you have to make sure that your premises map accurately to reality. My opponent mentioned do unto others as you would have them do unto them. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The golden rule. Reciprocity. And that has a long history. It's been used in many philosophies. Almost every religion will tell you that as part of their mandates and strictures. It serves well for getting people to think about things a bit, but as my opponent mentioned, if you're dealing with a sadomasochist, they might feel fine about you beating them up and therefore justify beating you up, or rationalise, more specifically, beating you up in turn. So it's one way of looking at it. I don't think it's a particularly good one. One that I'm currently trying to teach my children is the sunlight test. I caught my daughter standing near the water filter the other day. It's just at the right height for her to walk up to it and put her lips to the spigot and fill herself with a drink without having to bother going and getting a cup. And I caught her standing near it, looking a bit sly, and I said, "Were you drinking from the spigot again?" She said, "No." I said, "Really? How did you know?" So I didn't, but I do now. She was trying to hide from me something that she knew was wrong. If you can't put your actions out on display, you might need to think a bit harder about them. If you're trying to hide something from other people, have a think about why you're trying to hide it. Are you trying to hide it from the government because they'll put you in jail? Are you trying to hide it from the king because the king will be very upset and historically might hang you or cut your head off? Are you trying to hide it from your religious leader who will come down on you? So if you're trying to hide yourself from the light, from the scrutiny of others, maybe that's one way of picking up on whether or not you're doing something good. But that doesn't explain what is the good and bad in that situation. That just explains your reaction to your actions. Now, no one in this room has successfully committed suicide. All of you made it through childhood with all the myriad possibilities for messy death that carries with it. And all of you have maintained your health to the point where you've reached adulthood and can come to this event tonight. That stands to me as evidence that you value your life. You've all got pretty nice clothes. I've seen some people with iPhones and laptops and various bits and pieces. I think that would stand as some degree of evidence that you value property. I think that that's an innate pair of traits in humans. I think that if you don't have those traits, you don't thrive. If you don't value your life, you'll have an accident. You don't care about what's going on. I've worked in trauma cleaning for 2 years. I've seen plenty of messy accidents where people weren't paying attention, and our community, as safe as we've made it with the nanny state, still carries a lot of possibility for messy death. And people get really anxious if you take their stuff without asking. If we go out for a meal after this event and someone's got some calamari and they know that I love calamari and they say, "Matt, would you like some calamari?" I'll take a piece of calamari and I'll say thank you. Taking isn't the problem. If I just reach over and grab the calamari without their permission, that's the problem. It's the not having permission. It's not taking that's the problem, it's the permission, the consent. So one way of testing whether or not an action is right is to assess the logic of it, and in this case we're going to deal with the calamari. So again, my rubbish stick figures, here's a person, here's another person with some property. This person wants the property, that person doesn't want to give it to them, this person takes it anyway. Is what they've done right? Is what they've done good? One way of assessing that is to write down the logic. So, theft is taking property without permission. This person wants that to be okay. So, I want permission to take property without permission. When you write it down that way, you can see that that sentence is incoherent. The logic doesn't work. Because that's incoherent, we know it's wrong. Most of us don't need to be told that. We understand that from early childhood. If a child takes another child's toy, they get upset about it. They really don't feel that they've been served well in that situation. But by checking the logic, we can see that that isn't just a personal taste thing. There's actually something in the way that our species interacts with itself that not only our feelings but our thinking and our language reflect that. But the fact that we have a word for theft, taking property without permission, reflects those instinctual sentiments. If everyone was able to steal, there would be no advantage in stealing. There's only an advantage when a crime is the aberration. And the same goes for murder. If this person kills that person, they want to be able to justify unjustifiable killing. Murder is unjustified or unwarranted killing. Is killing the problem? I can think of situations, I hope I never face them, but I can think of situations in which I would kill someone and feel justified in doing so. But if I just decide to kill someone for no reason, that's unjustified killing, that's murder. There's no way of justifying it. So the same logic, I want justification for killing without justification, is incoherent, it's nonsensical, and therefore wrong. Is harm the measure of goodness? Terrible drawing. That's a fist. If you punch this person in the arm, you've harmed them. You've hurt their wellness, you've hurt their feelings, you probably hurt their arm. If you give them an ice cream, does that make it better? The ice cream might constitute an apology, but that's not a justification for hitting them in the arm. The outcome and the harm aren't linked. You can give a person an ice cream without punching them in the arm. So this harm is unnecessary. Just give the person the ice cream. But what if, instead of giving them an ice cream, you give them a vaccination against polio, which means that not only do they keep the use of their legs, but also their life. I know a couple of people that went through the 1950s, contracted polio. They survived. They were the lucky ones of the people that contracted polio in the 1950s. So I think vaccinations are a really big benefit to our community. And because the benefit is directly linked to the harm that you do in vaccinating someone, hurting their arm, making them feel a bit crook for a couple of days, I think that benefit justifies that harm. So harm's not the problem. It's whether or not the harm can be justified. I'll just give a quick nod. I'm not going to make many references to books or thinkers, but the thinking for this next idea came from Reasonable Doubts podcast, and they've just shut up shop. They've just done their last episode, so I'd like to recognise them. They're helping me come to the tenet: never deliberately cause unnecessary harm. With that one tenet, you've ruled out murder, rape, and theft, while leaving room for vaccinations, minor harm, major benefit, quarantine, removing someone's freedom of movement to protect an entire community from infection. You've also left scope for accidents. I was involved in a very bad accident when I was 19. I fractured my leg and one of my vertebrae. There was someone at fault in that accident. So, yes, you can attribute blame, but were they being bad? No, they didn't mean for that accident to happen. There was no intention to deliberately cause unnecessary harm. So, we've gotten rid of three really big problems, and you can scale that. You can scale that down to cheating at Monopoly if you want to. It's not the scale of the harm that you're doing to someone, it's that it's unnecessary. In order to think that you've got a divinely derived morality, you need at least 3 assumptions at work. The first is God exists. The second is that it's your God. The third is that God communicates with you in some way. And in many religions, it's actually not directly to the adherents, it's to the leaders of the religion. So, 3 nested assumptions before you can even say that you're on your way to having a divinely derived morality, where I haven't made any assumptions. I've used evidence to demonstrate that we hold common values, and I've used logic and reason that I can't spot a flaw in. Perhaps my opponent will, or in the questions will identify something that's wrong with it. There might also be a 4th assumption. Some people don't state it explicitly, some people it's implicit, some people say, no, all religions are correct, but everyone else is wrong. If there was one divinely derived morality, I would take the idea very seriously that might actually be the case. But even within this room, I can see different levels of adherence to religious tenets, and I'm sure that if we discussed it in detail with each and every person, you would find that there are almost as many interpretations of religion as there are people. Here are 2 twins. One of them is religious and one of them's not, and because I can't draw people very well, my ability to draw abstract concepts and ideas is rubbish. So I'm going to use a bit of mathematical notation, binary, 1 for belief, 0 for no belief. The twin with belief, their religion might require of them to profess that belief and to tell others about it and encourage them to take part. So they might tell you about their religion. The person without a religion doesn't have any injunction on them to do so. If you ask them, they might tell you, I have no religion. If there are penalties for having no religion in the community in which these people live, they might pretend they have a religion. I experienced that when I was losing my faith in the Anglican Church. I would turn up, I would sing the songs, I would agree with people that were making decisions about the way we should live as a community. That was me. It was fake and it was horrible. It was real cognitive dissonance territory. But because we can only know our own minds, no one was able to spot that I wasn't pious. A couple of years ago, some correspondence with a journalist, a Christian blogger. He railed on me for months and months, claiming that I wasn't actually an atheist, that he knew that I really believed and everyone was just in denial. April Fool's Day, I don't think it was me, and I don't think I need to apologise. It's probably just something that a younger iteration of me did that I wouldn't do now. I told him, no, you convinced me. I've converted, I've become a Christian. All of his questions about whether or not I was sincere before went away, and he just took that at face value. And I said, look, check the date of that email. That was April 1st. That's the Tuesday. I was playing a joke. He didn't think it was funny, but it demonstrated to me that he didn't have any interest in whether or not my faith was sincere. And that was really disappointing. And there is no litmus test. There is no litmus test for whether or not someone is sincere in their beliefs. Some people will handle snakes, and some people will die doing so. Okay, I'll pay that. I'll pay it more if they came to Australia and handled one of our snakes, but one other aspect of this is, here's our religious leader in his hat again. They can give orders to their follower. They can try to give orders to the person with no faith, and if they're pretending to have faith, they might follow those orders. Thank you. But do we know the mind of the leader? Are they sincere in their faith? As with this instance, we can't know. So there are instances where religious leaders have used their authority to do very well for themselves. They can wield tremendous power, they can gain tremendous wealth, they can get people to do their bidding because they hold that power, and we can't be sure that that power is valid. We don't know that they are sincere in their faith. We don't know that they have the link to God that they claim they have. They might be entirely wrong about any link in that chain, which might mean that they're not accurately representing a deity's thinking, or they might be entirely insincere and just lying to get us to do their bidding. And there was a video that my opponent posted on his Facebook page the other day showing conflicts in the Middle East in the form of a chessboard, and it was really beautifully done, and it just illustrated that point, that the leaders at the end of that little animation, they didn't care about the results. They were manipulating people. I found this rock this morning, walking around. It's black, or grey. Can I praise it for being that way? It's an intrinsic property of that rock that it is that colour. It doesn't have a choice in the matter. It doesn't have agency. People often state that their deity cannot do anything but good, as though goodness is irrelevant in that context. If they can't be bad, being good is an intrinsic property, and therefore as relevant to the situation as the fact that this rock is black. People have agency. People can make decisions about what they do. And I think anyone that can identify an unnecessary harm and avoid it is being a good person. Thank you.